Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cornell Keynotes. My name is Jean Varney, and I'm a senior lecturer and director for the Center for Real Estate and Finance in the Nolan School of Hotel Administration in the S.C. Johnson College of Business at Cornell University. I'm really happy today to be your co-host for today's keynote on global trends in hospitality sustainability performance. Today, we're discussing trends in hotel environmental performance and the recent release of the 2026 Cornell Hotel Sustainability Benchmarking Index, the industry's largest data set for sustainability benchmarking. From here on out, we'll refer to the report as CHSB report. This report is a collaborative effort between the Cornell Center for Hospitality Research and Greenview. For those of you that may not be familiar, Cornell's Center for Hospitality Research advances hospitality industry and the broader travel ecosystem through research that helps leaders tackle critical business challenges and make more informed decisions. They achieve this by facilitating and publishing and disseminating research on topics, that shape the future of the hospitality industry, translating into work that's practical in formats such as reports, case studies, benchmarking indices, and webinars just like this one, and industry roundtables. As for Greenview, we have with us today two experts from Greenview, and they will give you an overview of their organization in just a moment. With that, I'd like to introduce our keynote participants today. I'm pleased to be joined by my co-host and colleague, Erin Adalja, Associate Professor of Applied Economics and Policy at the Nolan School of Hotel Administration, Rima Jagarajan, a Senior Manager at Greenview, and Yingxin Tan, a Sustainability Manager also at Greenview. So we are really excited today to provide our viewers with an overview of the CHSB report and discuss really practical ways for hotels to use this data and also possibly participate in the benchmarking program. And so for you viewers, we definitely are interested in hearing from you and want to take your questions. So please submit them into the chat anytime. And keep your eyes out for resources, tools, and useful links that'll be in the chat as well. So let me tell you about a few things that you might be interested in. So first and foremost, if you'd like a copy of the 2026 CHSB report, we'll go ahead and drop that into the chat. For more information on the Center for Hospitality Research, we'll provide you for a link, we'll give you a link for their LinkedIn page. And then to find out more about Greenview, you can visit their main website as well, and we'll put that link into chat too. And last, Cornell has a course that's titled Sustainability in Building Design and Operations that you might find useful. This can help you improve your building sustainability performance, and we'll put that link into the chat too. So as always, today's live stream is being recorded, and it will also be available to you shortly after the show's over today, and you can use the same link that you used to tap in today. And also, in case you didn't know, the keynotes are also simulcast on YouTube, LinkedIn Live, and Facebook Live, along with the recordings. So we'll share those links also to these channels in the chat. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Erin, I'll pass the mic to you.
Thanks, Jean. I'm excited to participate in this keynote today, as this work aligns a lot with my sustainability research as well. I'd like to first start with our agenda. First, we'll go over a little bit of the history of the collaboration between Cornell's Center for Hospitality Research and Greenview, and how the index has evolved. We'll give you an introduction to the index and some key sustainability trends emerging from CHSB 2026, including insights into energy, water, carbon, and waste metrics across the industry. Then we'll discuss how hotels are using benchmarking to evaluate environmental performance. We'll explain some common challenges and opportunities that hotels have in hospitality waste and food waste management, and then we'll dive into some practical applications of benchmarking data for operational and strategic decision-making. So let's start off with a little bit of history. Since 2023, CHSB has enabled sector-wide benchmarking of energy, carbon, and water performance. It's powered by data from thousands of hotels worldwide, with the latest edition covering over 31,500 properties. CHSB is carried out through a collaborative effort between Greenview, the Cornell University Center for Hospitality Research, an industry advisory group, and the member hotels. This governance model ensures that CHSB remains informed by technical expertise and operationally relevant to hotel companies around the world. Jean, you were here in 2013. Do you remember the index's launch?
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I actually do. It started back in 2009 with the Center for Hospitality Research collaborating with Greenview to launch their annual Sustainability Roundtable series. So this is an event where you and I, Aaron, have co-chaired for the past 7 years, and we're really excited to co-chair the 17th roundtable this fall. I can't believe it. We're super excited here. The roundtables, though, they were where industry sustainability leaders gathered to discuss ways to move the industry forward and to create research platforms to further sustainability movement in the industry. So we now collaborate with the Center for Sustainable Global Enterprise and engage in the New York City Climate Week events. So it's really grown quite a bit. It's really exciting to participate in. One of the excellent outcomes of these early roundtables was the launching of the first CHSB back in 2013. It was really kind of envisioned to be an industry-led initiative to, create standardization and a global framework for benchmarking hotel sustainability performance. It was very much supported by industry brands, management companies, NGOs, even manufacturers, and of course, Cornell, we were very involved. The program has evolved over a decade to really become the most widely used sustainability benchmarking platform in the hotel industry. And the aim today is to share what users can get out of the CHSB dataset and how they can use it across multiple applications. And really, whether you're an academic, a hotel company, or play another role in hospitality or sustainability in any kind of those value chains. So, we also want to encourage more hotels to join CHSB 2027 as members. You'll receive benchmarking insights really tailored to your property profile, and also it will contribute to strengthening the data set itself. So, now before we dive into the data set itself, many people in the audience, have heard of CHSB, but may not fully understand what makes it unique. So, Yingxin, if you could start us off by giving us an overview of what CHSB is, as well as an introduction to Greenview.
Yes, thank you, Jean. Hi, everybody. My name is Yingxin. So before we get into the benchmarking, I'd like to briefly introduce Greenview. So we were founded in 2008, and we're based between Singapore and Washington, D.C., with some other team members around the globe. And our work cuts across various aspects of sustainability for the hospitality industry. So this includes consulting, data, our software platform, and several industry initiatives. As a brief overview, our consulting work aims to help hotel companies turn their sustainability goals into action. And to do this, we support multiple areas like strategy, reporting, program implementation, decarbonization, certifications, efficiency, and so much more. And then on the data and intelligence front, we help companies manage their carbon inventories, assess ESG risks and opportunities, track regulations for their policy compliance, and finally, what we're talking about today, to benchmark performance through CHSB. Over the years, we've worked with over 100 hospitality companies worldwide, and this rich experience in the hotel sector allows us to understand the unique context of hotels and ensure that our services really respond to the opportunities and challenges that hotels face. So now, getting into CHSB proper, many hotel teams ask similar questions, and you may also identify with some of the questions on this slide. So, are we performing better or worse than our peers? Are our decarbonization strategies on par? Do we know if our sustainability efforts are making a difference? How can we compare properties fairly across different locations? And even if you don't represent a hotel, you may have similar questions. How are hotels in general doing on sustainability? Are they getting more energy efficient as we would hope? Or which regions or countries have hotels that are performing the best. And that is exactly where our benchmarking comes in. So CHSB helps hotels measure their performance credibly, support decarbonization efforts, as well as gain insights across the portfolio. I know Jean and Aaron already covered some of the history of CHSB. So yes, it was developed together with Cornell University and several industry leaders. And over the past 13 years, we've provided a trusted benchmarking platform for hotels of all sizes and locations. And in those years, we've expanded the index too, in terms of geographical coverage, added new metrics, and added to the deliverables that our members now receive. So today, our data set covers more than 31,000 hotels, over 93 countries, and we also offer more granular segmentations into specific market areas and climate zones. Our data covers almost 5 million hotel rooms, and this scale is what really allows us to generate meaningful benchmarks across energy, water, carbon, and most recently, waste as a new added metric. This slide acknowledges the contributions from all our CHSB members. So one of our key strengths is that CHSB was built together with several leading hotel companies, and the industry continues to strengthen the data set each year as we expand the coverage to new market areas, hotel types, and so on. And another important group that I want to acknowledge is our industry advisory group. So these are experts made up of our long-standing CHSB members who bring a wealth of experience and insight, and they guide CHSB's development by providing input on what we should track, how we should calculate the metrics, keeping us updated on what data hotels actually want to know today. So this helps us to make sure that the benchmarks remain relevant, practical, and valuable for the hospitality sector.
Great, thank you, Igzin. So, that was really great information. Thank you for that sort of foundation. Now that we understand, the history and what makes up CHSB, let's turn to what the data is actually telling us. So, Rima, what are the topics and the segments that CHSB tracks, and what are some of the most notable trends in this new 2026 edition?
Thanks, Jane. Hi, everyone. I'm Rima. So I'll build on what Jane spoke and then walk through some of the key areas CHSB covers, and more importantly, what we're actually seeing in the data from the latest CHSB index. I'll start with a quick bit on how the data comes together, and then we'll get into the insights. At a high level, CHSB follows a pretty structured process. We start with collecting data from hotels globally, then we standardize it, segment it, both by geography and hotel type, and run it through a series of validation checks. And that's really important because it means when we get to the results, we are not just looking at a large data set, but a reliable one. In terms of what's being measured, CHSB covers several core sustainability data points: carbon, energy, water, waste, and renewables. All of these are converted into intensity metrics such as per square meter or per occupied room to make comparisons fair across very different properties. This matters because hotels vary widely in size, occupancy, service level, and operating model. So normalizing the data helps us compare performance more fairly across different types of properties. The benchmark also segments data geographically. This includes market area, region, climate zone, and country. Each of these can influence performance in a different way. So geographic segmentation helps us avoid treating all hotels as if they operate under the same external conditions. In addition to geography, the benchmark is also segmented by hotel characteristics. This includes STR chain scale, asset class, exterior star rating, hotel type, and location segment. These distinctions matter because a luxury resort, an urban full-service hotel, and a limited service property can have very different operating models, because ultimately benchmarking only works when you're comparing properties against truly comparable peers rather than against the entire industry average. To make sure the data is reliable, CHSB applies rigorous validity checks. These checks look at data completeness, anomalies, unusual variances, and intensity thresholds. So the validity testing helps to make sure the benchmark reflects realistic hotel performance. Now, let's move from how the data is built to what the data actually shows us. For CHSB 2026, we are looking at over 31,000 participating hotels globally. Of those, about 87.6% of energy data and 85.7% of water data pass validation checks, giving us a strong and reliable data set. With that strong foundation, let's take a look at some of the trends, starting with energy. Here we begin looking at city-level energy performance across US cities. This view focuses on full-service, non-resort hotels with off-site laundry, which is important because it keeps the comparison more consistent. We are not missing resorts, limited service properties, or hotels with different laundry models. The data shows that Chicago and New York sit at the higher end of energy intensity, while Los Angeles and San Francisco are lower among the track cities. This suggests that even within the same broad hotel segment, local market factors, such as climate, density, and operating patterns can influence energy intensity. And then when we look at carbon, we see a slightly different ranking compared with energy. Miami and Chicago have the highest carbon intensity, while Los Angeles and San Francisco remain materially lower. This difference is important because carbon is not only about how much energy a hotel uses, it is also influenced by the emission factor of the local grid and the mix of energy sources used. Two cities may have similar energy use, but their carbon intensity can differ depending on how clean or carbon intensive the local energy supply is. So the same level of usage can result in very different emissions depending on where you are. Water shows the widest spread across the US cities in this segment. Miami and Dallas are the higher end, while San Francisco and Boston define the lower end of the peer range. This suggests water intensity is more variable across cities than some of the other metrics. That variation can reflect climate, landscaping needs, local water practices, guest behavior, and operational factors, such as schools or food and beverage activities. So water is a metric where local context and property operations can have a very visible impact. What's particularly interesting isn't the difference between cities. It's the variation within the same city. This slide, the next slide, will look beyond city median and compare the gap between lower quartile and upper quartile energy usage within each city. Denver has the widest gap, with the upper quartile using about 2.3 times the lower quartile. This is important because the gap is not about which city uses the most energy overall. It shows how much variation exists within the same city and segment. In this case, it's the full-service, non-resort, off-site laundry properties. Wider gaps suggest that some hotels in the same market are operating much less efficiently than their peers, which could point to differences in building systems, operating practices, maintenance, or retrofit maturity. So this isn't just about reducing consumption, it's about closing performance gaps within peer groups. For water, the upper to lower quartile gap is generally clustered around 1.4 to 1.7 times in most cities. This means there's still meaningful variation, but the spread is more consistent compared to the energy gap. The main takeaway here is that even within a defined peer group, water performance can vary significantly. This points to differences in operating practices, human efficiency, landscaping, or even gas-related water usage. All right, now if we take a step back and look over time, we see a mixed picture. This slide compares year-over-year changes in energy, water, and carbon across US hotel segments. The key point is that performance is moving differently depending on both the metric and the segment. Energy, for example, in this scenario, energy increased from 2023 to 2024, especially for full-service non-resort hotels, but remains below 2019's level. Water increased more sharply, particularly in the full-service non-resort segment. Carbon, on the other hand, shows a longer-term reduction compared with 2019, even though some segments increased by year-over-year. Now, while energy, water, and carbon are relatively well-established areas, waste is still evolving. Although reporting has grown, only a portion of the data set passes validation, and very few properties currently report both disposal and diversion. So as you can see in this slide, from the over 31,000 hotels, participating hotels and resorts, only 9,785 included food waste data. And out of that, only 8,350 passed our rigorous reality test. And only 224 hotels submission covered both disposal and diversion. So there's definitely progress being made, but also room to improve. So I'll leave it there for now and hand over to Jane and Aaron. We'll come back to waste in a moment.
Great. Thank you so much, Rima, for all that interesting data. Really insightful. You know, one of the things that I find most promising, it's one of the most promising parts really of the benchmarking program is the large number of hotels that are submitting their data. We saw that earlier slide with all those company names, including brands, management companies, and ownership groups. So I want to really give actually a shout out to those companies that are having their properties take the time to gather the data and to, to give us all of that information so they can participate in the program. We really would not have these insights, without them. So really, now that we know not all data is valid, and you pointed that out in your validation process. But because so many hotels submit their information, Greenview is collecting an excellent cross-section of hotel types and from hotels around the world. So it really makes the data very, very solid. It's also encouraging to know that thousands of hotels are collecting and analyzing their energy, water, waste, and food waste data for the purposes of reduction. Now, we know the phrase that what gets measured gets managed. And because of how finely they're defining the segmentation of the hotel data, hotels can really benchmark themselves in segments that are truly comparable. And as earlier noted, more hotels are joining the program and building on the insights each year. All right, so I just want to put a shout out to our viewers too. Don't forget, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them into the chat. All right, so let's shift over now to the topic of food waste. And Rima, you mentioned that food waste is an area where hotels continue to face challenges. So let's explore that in a little bit more depth. Food waste has also become a really growing, emerging topic in the industry. It comes up all the times in our conversations, in our industry roundtables. So it's a really big issue here. So can you share some of your insights from the CHSB food waste report?
Yes, Jane. And we are seeing a lot more focus on this area across the industry now. So I'll walk through a few key takeaways, starting with findings from the CHSB 2026 more broadly, and then some highlights from the food waste report itself. So at the regional level, total waste intensity per square meter is highest in Europe and lowest in Northern America. The regional medians range from 7.1 to 8.8 kilograms per square meter, giving us spread of about 1.7 kilograms per square meter. This tells us that regional differences do exist, but of course the spread is not extremely wide. The differences may reflect local waste practices, regulation, diversion infrastructure, hotel operating models, or even how waste is measured or reported. So the regional view, of course, useful for understanding broader patterns, but it should be interpreted alongside more specific cuts by city or even hotel type. So looking at US cities, the next slide normalizes total waste by occupied rooms. So on this basis, Chicago has the highest median at 2.3 kilograms per occupied room, while New York is at the lower end at 1.7 kilograms per occupied room. So several cities also clustered around 2.1 kilograms per occupied room. This view is useful because it connects waste generation to guest activities. So it has answer for each occupied room how much waste is being generated. When we look at waste per square meter, the picture changes. San Francisco comes out highest, while Houston is at the lower end. This shows that how we normalize the data can influence how we interpret performance. The difference is likely driven by hotel footprint and density. Cities with more compact or space-efficient properties can show higher waste per square meter, even if their waste per occupied room is not the highest. Larger hotels may appear lower on a square meter basis because same activity is spread across more floor area. So slide 29 and 30 should be read together. One reflects guest room intensity, while the other reflects building space density. Next, that's what we are basically seeing on CHSB more broadly. Now let's zoom in a bit and look specifically at the CHSB 2025 food waste report. Out of more than 31,000 participating properties, around 9,800 submitted general waste data, but out of which only 1,940 properties included food waste data. After validity check, that number drops to 976 records, and out of which only just 39 properties covered both disposal and diversion, which really shows that this is still an emerging area for the industry. But that said, even with a smaller data set, we are starting to see some fairly clear patterns. So in the next slide, for example, full service resorts tend to generate the most food waste, followed by full service hotels with limited service properties significantly lower. So that's definitely not too surprising. It largely comes down to the scale and complexity of food operations, especially things like buffet and multiple dining outlets. So for full service resorts and full service hotels, typically have more food and beverage activities, whereas limited service hotels usually have less extensive in-house dining, so their food waste intensity is lower. So we also start to see differences at the country level. For instance, the US sits relatively lower compared to markets like India or Indonesia, where food waste intensity is higher. So there are definitely regional dynamics at play as well. This basically suggests that country level performance is shaped by more than efficiency alone. It may also reflect differences in food service models, buffet and banquet activity, guest behavior, local reporting practices, or even waste management infrastructure. So the country view has shown that food waste is influenced by market context and not just hotel level operations. And the final point is that food waste has both financial and environmental implications. From a cost perspective, around 8% of food spent is estimated to be wasted. Financially, even a small percentage of food waste can translate into meaningful cost leakage because food is a major operating expenses for hotels and resorts. Environmentally, reducing food waste can conserve land, water, energy, and definitely agricultural inputs. It can also reduce landfill pressure and associated emissions, as you all know, or as you don't, especially because landfill emissions are higher than composting. So overall, what we are seeing is that while energy and carbon are more mature areas, waste and especially food waste is where there's still a lot of untapped opportunity. And with that, I'll hand it back to Jane and Aaron.
Great. Thank you, Rima. I couldn't agree more with there's a lot of untapped opportunities there for sure. And we will put a link to the publication in the chat for you as well. So Aaron, your area of research delves into food waste. Do you have any thoughts here related to the topic in your work?
Sure, yeah. This is really promising data, and I was really excited to see this report. As hotels begin to track more granular food waste data, both by source and by type, I'm excited to see how we can bring to bear what we've learned from academic research on food waste in other parts of the food industry to improve hotel performance in this realm. There's already a robust body of research from food retailing, supply chain management, consumer behavior, behavioral economics, and agricultural economics, my own field, that's developed solutions through technology, through behavioral interventions, through education, to reduce food waste at every node in the agri-food value chain. To that end, collecting this data from hotel companies will create a virtuous cycle. It'll help us as researchers by guiding new research around solutions for food waste reduction, specifically geared to the hospitality industry. In fact, some of our faculty here at the SC Johnson College of Business already have some work that looks specifically at how deploying AI-based smart-scale technology in commercial kitchens can drastically reduce food waste by nearly 30% just 3 months after adoption. We'll drop a link into the chat of the working paper related to that research. But this is really only the beginning. I think as we collect more richer data, it really provides some opportunities for this academic industry partnership to strengthen and create that virtuous cycle.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I know you've definitely got several colleagues that you work with, and you've brought this topic actually into some of your roundtable sessions as well. So great. So now, moving beyond the data, how can companies use these insights? So Rima, for hotel and restaurant operators listening today, what are some of the practical first steps that they can take if they want to start improving their food waste performance?
Thanks, Jane. That's a great question because this is really where the data becomes actionable. For companies looking to improve food waste performance, I would suggest starting simple. First, focus on measurement. Even a short exercise tracking food waste across kitchens, buffets, and plate waste can give you a clear view of where the biggest gaps are. From our food waste report, we see that waste in hotels largely stems from overproduction, spoilage, and leftover food from guest stays, particularly in full service operations. So once you have that visibility, the next step is to understand those patterns and where they are occurring in your operations. From there, it becomes much easier to take action, whether that's adjusting production, refining processes, or even improving how teams manage food during service. And importantly, set a simple target and track progress over time. Let's not go too ambitious. Just a simple target. What we've seen is that once hotels start measuring and managing food waste, the improvement can be both quick and meaningful, not just from a sustainability perspective, but also from a cost standpoint.
Thanks, Rima. Apart from operations, how can companies use the benchmarking data for other purposes like target setting or strategy? Yingxin, how have CHSB members applied their benchmark results to practice?
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. So let me share more details about the results that are available from CHSB. So it is designed to serve both public users as well as our participating hotel members. And on the left side of the screen, for the public, anybody can access the Data Explorer and downloadable dataset to understand industry trends and benchmark performance at a high level. and the link to our Data Explorer will be in the chat. Members, though, receive much deeper level of insight. So they get detailed hotel benchmark reports and portfolio dashboards and others, all to understand how their own properties compare against their specific peer groups. And the CHSB data is actually used by a much broader range of stakeholders beyond hotels. So hotel companies, as we've mentioned, use it to benchmark performance, and from there identify improvement opportunities. We also have destinations and tourism organizations who use it to find out how their regions are performing. The travel industry uses the carbon footprint values from CHSB to estimate emissions from hotel stays. Similarly, businesses also use that to calculate their Scope 3 emissions for employee travel. And other groups like researchers, consultants, policymakers also rely on CHSB for their studies, guidance on emission factors, and decarbonization pathways. So all this hotel sustainability data has value way beyond the individual property itself. It actually supports this broader travel and tourism ecosystem. We have some actual examples of how CHSB data has been used in practice. We've been cited by governments like the UK and New Zealand, used in emissions calculation guidance by consultants or calculation tools, business travel, carbon footprint methodologies, sustainable travel indices, and other tourism industry reports. So in many cases, CHSB serves as a trusted source of hotel data when the actual property level information may not be available. And then coming back to use cases for hotels, the biggest benefit of benchmarking is to provide context. So if you were to look at just your utility bill or sustainability report, you can only tell how you're performing against yourself or last year's self. Whereas the benchmarking tells you how you're performing relative to your peers. So internally, you can compare the properties within your own portfolio, where you might find that two very similar looking hotels, a similar size and similar type, can have very different energy and water intensities. And from this finding, you can identify the best practices, or if there are any operational issues, and find opportunities for improvement. Now, externally, you can then compare your properties against similar hotels in the market to find out if you're performing at the median or better than the median in the top quartile, and what are these areas where your peers may be performing better than you. So you can see, oh, maybe it's water that I should be focusing on. So all these insights will help hotel companies to identify where their gaps are, prioritize where to improve, and support broader decarbonization. So while we do have the public benchmarking data available, membership gives you much more insight. So your data is compared against peer groups, but your individual performance remains confidential. And then you get the accurate metrics and carbon footprints calculated using our consistent methodology, which helps your reporting and tracking progress over time. Another benefit is ensuring robust data quality through the validity testing that Rema mentioned just now. We help to identify any anomalies, gaps, or inconsistencies that you might otherwise have not noticed. From all these numbers, you can derive the strategic insights on your performance and where to improve. And on the communication end, CHSB participation is a representation of industry recognized benchmarking that would strengthen stakeholder confidence. So all in, it helps to improve the quality of your sustainability data to reliably inform your decision making. And to make that more tangible by showing you what the members actually receive, the first thing you get is a customized hotel benchmarking report. So this is where your confidential comparisons are against the peer groups across energy, water, and carbon to see where you're leading or where you can improve. Members also get an interactive portfolio dashboard. This is what it would look like. allowing your sustainability teams and corporate leaders to view performance across the whole portfolio. You can filter by your region, brand, hotel type, and other characteristics to look for the trends and outliers. The third thing you get is the validity testing and diagnostic report. This is the one where it will help you to find any missing information or potential data issues that you can then look into and correct. And finally, you get your carbon calculations using our hospitality-specific emission factor library and standard methodology, which provides you a consistent foundation for carbon reporting, target setting, and decarbonization. So I'm coming to the end of my slides. If you're interested in benchmarking your hotels, we'd be very happy to have you on board. You can visit our website. The link will be in the chat, or contact our team directly to learn more about how you can get started. And then for those who want to explore the data right away, I just have a few more links to go through. The Data Explorer and the dataset is all here. And this is the final slide. Yeah, just to stay connected with Greenview, explore the benchmarks, reach out if you'd like to join CHSB. Thank you. Yeah, back to you, Jean.
Okay, great. Thank you, Igson. Aaron, we have a couple of questions.
Yeah, we have a couple questions in the chat. The first one is a usability question related to the Data Explorer, I believe. It's from Bruce. And he's asking, how does one sort by, or can one sort by on-site laundry when using the Data Explorer? Maybe if Rema or Yingxin was able to address that.
Is this related to the dashboard that Yingxin shared?
Yes, I believe the Data Explorer. The question was, how does one, or can one sort by on-site laundry in that Data Explorer?
Yeah, so the laundry is not included as a toggle on the Data Explorer, unfortunately. We try to keep it simple as a quick visualization that users can access directly on the website. So while you are able to filter by things like hotel type and country, we weren't able to include every single variable on there. So laundry is currently not something that you can filter. But if you would like more detailed insights into laundry, you can always reach out to us. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, please join us and we can provide you more granular benchmarking or any level of benchmarking that you would be interested in as well.
Thank you. Okay, and there was one more question in the chat as well. This is from Gregory, and he says, I've seen some reporting from a property, which is the Ritz-Carlton Pentagon City, and their BioGreen 360 food waste technology. And he's wondering if that was included in any of these studies, or if you're familiar with that.
So for CHSB, not something I'm familiar of, and also that particularly the property information is anonymous, so we don't provide any particular property level details in the benchmark report or anywhere, unless they get the specific bespoke benchmark report. But other than that, not exactly, unless Aaron, if you have any insight based on any waste research that you have been involved.
No, unfortunately, I'm not familiar with this one, but my interest is piqued. I'm certainly going to look more into it after this webinar. Hopefully, there's it sounds like there might be some promising information there. But thank you both for your questions. And if anyone has more questions, we have a little time, so feel free to drop questions in the chat. We still have a little bit of time to address those, either for Jean or myself or Rema or Yingxin. We'd be happy to take those. But otherwise, I will pass it over to Jean.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for, again, questions, and Rima and Yingxin. Erin, as well. And it's really been a great session today. You know, it's been full of important data, information, resources for restaurants and hotels. We hope that you can use this material, you know, more effectively to manage your resources, how you consume resources, how you're managing your waste output, and ultimately improve your environmental sustainability performance for your operations. So what I'd like to do here is, it's a favorite thing at the end, you know, of a keynote here, is to ask everyone for one last takeaway for our viewers. So Ingsen, how about you?
Before we do that, we did have one more question.
Oh wait,
show
good,
up.
great, all right.
So we have a little time, so we'll throw
squeak
one
it
more
in.
question. So this question is from Alex, and he asks, and I think this is for our Greenview friends, once a property identifies potential gaps in their energy, carbon, waste metrics through the benchmarking, does Greenview offer potential options to address those gaps through best practices or case studies, product overviews, or anything like that? Where does the service, you know, what are the range of services you offer?
Yeah, thanks, Alex, for that question. So CHSB as a service is the first step, right? You can't manage what you don't measure. So we get the data and the benchmarks, and then after that, we do offer a range of products and services to help, whether that's if you're looking at best practices to improve your energy efficiency, or even on-site operational efficiency audits, or further down the line, if you're looking to set net zero targets, that's all part of our consulting and advisory work that we offer. So that's a little bit further along from CHSB itself, but that is definitely in the realm of our service offerings. Yeah.
Thanks, Singson. Okay, now I think Jean, let's conclude with your question.
Okay, all right, the closing thoughts. And Ingsen, we wanted to start with you.
Yes, yeah, thank you. This has been a great session. My closing thing is just that I hope the audience has seen how useful benchmarking can be. Maybe even started thinking about how you can apply this in your work. And we want to acknowledge that CHSB exists only because thousands of hotels around the world give us their data. And together we've managed to build such a robust industry resource over the past 13 years, and its value continues to grow with every new member. So if you're a hotel company, we'd love for you to join us and help to strengthen the data set. And if you're not, we encourage you to use the benchmarks in any way you find relevant in your research, or sharing them with colleagues, clients, or partners who might find it valuable. Because the more the industry joins in and engages with it, the stronger this resource becomes for everyone. So do help us spread the word.
All right, Rima?
For me, the key takeaway is that benchmarking gives you the context to act, actually. So it helps you move from data to vision. And that's really what CHSB is about, helping companies understand where they stand and where the opportunities are. So once you have that clarity, even related simple targeted action can drive meaningful improvements in performance over time.
All right, Erin?
All right, so the evolution of CHSB over the last decade is really a testament to the adage that Jean mentioned earlier: you can't manage what you don't measure. As we've seen today, the hospitality industry has made impressive strides across multiple dimensions to improve performance over time based on this benchmark. So for this reason, I want to come back to the food waste report. I'm really particularly excited by the launch of this report and the prospect of collecting more granular food waste data from participating hotels as the program evolves. I think this initiative really has the potential to transform how we manage food waste in the hospitality industry over the next decade. So I really encourage all hotel companies to consider contributing their data to that resource.
Great, thank you. So I'll end on one last note here. As we mentioned earlier, the data from the CHSB reports are compiled really from thousands of hotels submitting their information, and the reports are updated on an annual basis, so the findings are really timely and relevant. Hotel operators, brands, and owners are incredibly busy every day doing more with less resources. So I do encourage our viewers, to take a moment and download the resources that have been provided here today for you. You can find some new insights, maybe some best practices that came up in the question earlier, and all of these that, can possibly enhance your hotel's environmental performance here. So with that, thank you again to my co-hosts and colleagues, Aaron, for your great insights, our Greenview experts, Rima and Yingxin, for providing all of this great information, really incredible detailed data. And, hopefully, again, our viewers really can find this information useful and find it as a launching pad to, continue the great work of improving environmental performance. So, if you have any more questions about the data or, again, want to join the CHSB as a member, we've got that link in there, Contact Greenview. You can check out their website for more information and the links provided. And again, you can go to the Center for Hospitality Research LinkedIn page too. And last, if you have any colleagues that were unable to join us live today and are interested in this keynote, it will be available on all of the Cornell media channels, including this website, the LinkedIn piece, Facebook Live, and YouTube there. So with that, on behalf of all of us today, we really want to thank you again for joining us, and have a great one.